just to give a recap, last week I bring in a business challenge, a business problem of mine, and an experiment that I was thinking of conducting. And through the discussion, we explored on different direction my initial experimentation could have taken. And I realized that I was thinking very narrow in a very let's say biased way, that I was already the experiment that I was conducting was already assuming the end result. So that I'm actually supposed to find out. So what we mean by that is, I'm looking for a brand tagline, let's call it, so that I could go on and
And that's your own brand tagline,
my own brand
Ed's
tagline.
brand tagline.
Exactly. So basically, it's something similar to the finding your promise, the promise that you make to the market. That is one of the 48-hour book method activity. Um, so I wanted to do it, but not in context of a book, but in everything I do. So I was looking for things that my highest paying clients are considering, that make them pay to me.
And
And
this is your already existing client. This is very important because a
yeah,
lot of the things, a lot of times people get hung up on, who do I interview and how do I get the feedback from them? And it's actually rather easy if you just go and talk to your existing clients.
yeah. So the challenge that I was facing was like which question to ask. And in fact, I was not even considering asking them. I was not
You
walking
thought you knew the
my own
answer.
talk. Right?
You thought you knew the answer already.
Exactly, exactly. So I
Very
came up
common
with this like,
problem.
hey, I observed this, and I think this is the answer, and this is the next experiment. So I was actually doing, let's say, if there are layers that you have to cross one layer first, layer one, then layer two. I was experimenting of layer two without validating
Actually,
layer
a
one.
bit more than that. What you said is actually a very good way to describe it. There are different layers, and when we're thinking about um, what are the current customers already knowing me for, and what are they valuing my contribution for? Of course, when we are asking that question, we're asking a question as to what's the value we bring to the customers we serve. But your experiment was already, if I give them this, whatever the solution was, will they buy it? And of course, that's I would say it's not even the second layer. That's like the third, fourth, or even fifth layer, which is the solution layer, right? Because there's the branding layer, like how do they even find me? What are the keywords? What kind of problems do they have? That's the branding layer. Then there's the next, which is what kind of benefit are they looking for? Like what is it that drives them? What are the things that in their business need fixing or they need help with? And and from then on, we go on to the solutions. And in the 48-hour book method, we talk about this idea that you can only ask customers about the challenges and problems they have because they don't know what the solutions are. And the moment we start testing solutions without first figuring out what are they trying to achieve, right? Without using our terminology, without going into what I would call solution domain, but rather staying in the problem domain, i.e., what are the struggles they have? What are the things they want to do and can't? What are their objectives business wise, and all of that? Like, that's very important, right? And you were already on the solution side. You were already testing a solution,
Yeah.
and then we started talking about, okay, but what are they struggling with? And of course, we didn't know what they were struggling with, and that's the need for the SMIQ.
So one thing that you encouraged in that call was to, instead of asking future based questions, that means asking them about what they would do in their future, go back and reflect on what they have done. But then that again need me to think the question in a different way. That means what were they trying to do in the first place for which they have taken certain actions.
and
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 that
that
would be
question needs to be asked with their business in mind, not your solution or your services in mind, but their business in mind.
Yeah, and I don't know how close I am to the answer I was looking for, or maybe the outcome I'm looking for. But that's why I want to bring it up to date. However, I have discovered things that I would never imagine. So, and I managed to talk to
Okay, but
two.
before you go into
Yeah.
what you've discovered, and I'm sure there will be amazing stuff to share here,
Mm,
we came up with a solution for your problem, right? Like, how do I know what really makes my customers work with me?
yeah.
And that solution, as it often happens here on the 48-hour book method, we talk about the SMIQ, or single most important question. So, what was the question that you asked your existing customers?
So I went a step back. So instead of asking SMIQ in the exact way that we ask, which is like, when it comes to X, what is the single biggest challenge you had? I went a step back and split into two questions. One was, before we started working together, what was the problem that you were trying to solve? So what were you trying to solve, for which you saw me as a solution to that problem? And the second thing was, what else have you tried so to solve that same problem?
Yeah,
uh,
so that's
or you have
trying to come up with the first part of the SMIQ by exploring the customer's problem space, right? Like their business, their needs, their goals.
Yeah, yeah. So this combination of these two things gave me insights that my competition is totally not what I imagined it was.
And that's very often an insight we get when we look at the results of the SMIQ. So that's great. So tell us more about that. So what? So you ask what were you trying to solve, and what had you tried before, right? So
Right.
you ask those two questions, very powerful questions as well,
Yeah.
and
So,
you got some feedback. What was that feedback?
right. So I was thinking of asking these questions to three people. The third one gave me appointment today. So it, it
So
could
you
happen
asked two
afterwards.
people.
So I got two people, so I got to talk to two people. They are completely different fields and industries and markets. How and probably like some age group, or at least one generation difference in age group. Um, However, there are some commonalities. So both are experts. Both have no problem earning money. In the sense they have reached a point where like money is everything.
They have more money than time. They are money rich and time poor, which is something we talk about in the book as well.
Exactly, exactly. And the thing they were trying to achieve was, in the language of the first person. It was They were trying to so the way she so it's a Kate. Our customer avatar is based on, one of the customer avatars is based on her. So Kate, it's a code name. Kate is not the real name. uh, Kate of was experiencing that, like, hey, I'm getting old, and life is, like, it's I'm and the word she used was burnout. So I'm experiencing burnout. I was
Yeah,
experiencing
and
burnout.
that's very common for entrepreneurs, right? Like you work so hard to get the business to, to succeed, and then it succeeds, and that's even worse because now you're working hard to keep it going, right? Like you feel responsible for it. Of course, you feel responsible towards your customers. You don't want to disappoint them, and that takes a lot of time and effort and focus that you start taking away from other parts of your life.
Right. Yeah. And she she has she has been wanting to create something, which she didn't put a word on it, which the second person I talked with, the photography client, he put a word on it, which was residual income, and I'll come back to it later.
All
So
right, so take it from residual income. Yep.
yeah, so I will talk about residual income when I'll talk about the second person. So for her, for 4 years, she's been trying, experimenting with creating an app or creating like a website and stuff like that. However, her knowledge in this area is very limited. And the investors, who she even got investors to invest in those projects, like as a friendly investors. Hey, you have good idea, we want to do something. But then, in her own words, none of them, including her and people in her team and the investors, know what they were doing. They just were excited about the idea, and they were trying, and what they were trying to achieve was something outside of their service business that they could then move their business model to, and that would bring in something which was equivalent to the residual income, which is like you don't have to work all the time to bring in that income. Like you create something once and that bring in the income. So that's what she has been trying. Eventually she stopped. She all she wanted to do was chill. So she started, even before she hired me, she started the process of chilling. So in the sense that like clients will come to her, she would just pass on to somebody else, like even though she can take it, but like
Yeah, exactly. So she was trying to actively manage the time that she spent on the business, right?
exactly, exactly. And this discussion eventually lead us to, she was just like so excited with the idea that like, hey, the number one thing she is happy with, like out of everything else that I'm able to help her with, is that now she was in Mexico at the time, and she's been there for like a month or a little bit more. Um, and she was enjoying the fact that, because she knows that like, I can handle everything else, and like I know everything that I'm doing, um, she can relax there, and that's worth every penny and even more. In her own words, this is not something which came from
And
me.
this is very important, right? Like because she's at the point, Kate, the avatar we're talking about, she's at the point where making the business successful is no longer the problem. It's benefiting from that success. It's enjoying the success of the business as a person, not as an entrepreneur, that has become the problem, which I think is one of the major insights that you got from this conversation. And it goes in a totally different direction from what you had before, right? Like, so talk us about that contrast.
Yeah. So my background is in direct response marketing. That's how I met you. That's how I've made most of the money in my life. One of the common trend in direct response marketing is like, like almost everyone you will see in the marketing will talk about like 6-figure courses, 7-figure this, and 2-figure launch, 7-figure launch, 5-figure clients, and blah blah blah. All of these like figures numbers. Um, Now, one thing which is I learned after going with the stream is that I don't control those results. I can promise those results to people. I don't control them because there are lots of things that goes in. And in fact, almost all the case studies that or testimonials that you see with other courses, other programs, other consultants are of people who would succeed regardless of whether that consultant will help them or not. So this is a key insight that why am I, just because everyone else in my marketing is claiming to be like, because of me you will get that million or something like that, which is never true. I have not seen a single case in real life working in this industry for 6 years, and I've worked with gurus, like people who call themselves marketing gurus, right? And been the back office, the behind the scenes infrastructure builder of them. um, I have never seen a single case where somebody came out of nowhere, not knowing anything what they're doing, and then become like a whoa success. Even not overnight, not even in a year, not even in 3 years. It's a journey. It's a long journey. It's a really long journey.
And it's
And
a long journey for everybody. It's a long journey for me.
exactly
It's a long journey for you. And of course, it's a long journey for your clients. But talk to us more about the contrast, what you expected to find versus what you actually found when you interviewed your customers.
right. Okay, coming back. So just to give a contrast, the previous versions of the statements that I was preparing was like, "Hey, I help you create courses that sell, or things that sell, or I help you become successful with becoming a digital course entrepreneur, or something like that." Right? So it's the definition of success. And if you watch the previous video, I'm talking to the audience now. You will see me, or you will hear me saying that statement very clearly, that success for me means you selling your courses and stuff, things like that. But
That's
upon
what you expected.
that's what I expected.
What did you get?
Success for buying time. The in both the cases, even in the case of the other client who's talking about residual income, the motive is clear. He has no lack of money. He has lots of opportunities out there, and what, like for example, Kate tried to build an app. This guy tried. This guy already has
Let's
an
call him Kevin. All right,
Let's
Kevin.
go Kevin. Yeah, Kevin has invested in properties before, and he was about to invest in a property when, like, the referral through whom I got the client was like, no, 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 no. You need to work with Ed. Work on your IP. So for him, it was a choice between whether I should invest in property
Buy a
again.
house or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, buy a house and then put it on rent and stuff, or build my IP with Ed. So that
With that money. So same money,
that
what do
money.
I
Yeah,
do with it? I have so much money, I have to invest it. Otherwise, it's just sitting there and disappearing through inflation. I need to put that money to work for me, which is very important. You know, when you finally start to realize that you have more money than you need, you start to think, okay, but how can I ensure my future, right? That's a very common process for all of us if that ever happens, if we get to that level of success. All right. So then you had the interview with Kevin as well. How did that interview go?
So yeah, so that interview started with what I was expecting to begin with, but then when I dig in, it went in this direction. So it started with, like, I asked him like, why you considered getting into this digital course, an online course, and his first response was like, to make more money. I want to make more money. I was like, and then I dig in, why you want to make more money? Why is it important for you? What else have you tried? And this is when I discovered that, like, hey, what he wanted to use, he was using the word like residual income. Then I asked him to define what he understand by residual income, and in his words is like, make money without working, without working for
So
it.
get the money to work for you. Exactly.
Exactly. And I asked him like, why does he want that? Why does he want to have residual income? He said like, because I can make money, but it takes so much effort,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do that.
And this is what we talk about in the 48-hour book method. Like our avatar for that book is, of course, Jennifer, who's a consultant who wants to get invited to speak at conferences in her industry to be recognized for her expertise, right? Like that's the starting story, the backstory for Jennifer. But one of the things we talk about in the book is that if you're really successful as a consultant, you have no time to develop your knowledge. And of course, what made you successful in the first place was developing knowledge. And what makes you an expert is for other people to recognize that you have developed that knowledge, right?
Right.
And when you're as a consultant, the more successful you are, the more you lose the expertise image that you have out there, right? Because you're so busy with the current clients, you have no time to build the future clients, right? And that's why the book is so important for Jennifer. And in the case of Kevin, what we found out from your interview is that he's got no problem finding more work, but he's asking himself now, wait a minute, I can't keep up this rhythm forever. In other words, as we say in the book, he is money rich and time poor. And he figures out that if he doesn't change his investment strategy, he will later on be money poor and time rich. So, how do we find that balance? And this is really important and one of the key aspects of building content products. But Kevin had probably some idea about what that residual income would mean for him. And I'm interested in how you developed that question and what he started talking about residual income, what that would mean, and also how it would affect him, how it would become kind of a mix in his business, right? Because at the end of the day, we're talking about product lines as well. So, how did that conversation go?
Um, so one thing, there's a gap in my knowledge, my understanding is something related to what you just asked. It is, uh, for example, he was investing in a property for the purpose of residual income. Then he chose to invest with me, again with the purpose of residual income. Uh, I wanted to know what made him change his mind from a property, but his answer was like, because the referral, the person I often work with, and he's the referral, insisted. Now that's okay as an answer, but there's a sequence of thinking which went in. Regardless of somebody insisting, people will not make an investment without something in going in. I didn't discover that. So what was the chain of thinking that went in for him? He weighted this opportunity more.
Yeah, so you mean building IP versus investing in real estate? Like, why did he choose to build IP?
Yeah,
And I think that there it might be good for you to interview the person who recommended you to Kevin and figure out why did you find that it was important for you to recommend building IP over investing in real estate.
yeah,
And the reason why I say this is that this idea of generating residual income and having more time, more free time that you can manage on your own,
yeah,
I think those are potentially great motivators,
yeah,
right? Like what you're doing in the end is selling a solution to reach that goal, right? Like this is why the 4 hour work week book was so successful, because a lot of us are looking for that we are looking for a way to manage our time, right? And as humans, the whole idea that our time belongs to somebody else, either as an employee or as an entrepreneur, is very new, right? Because it was only really the industrial revolution that changed that, because originally we all lived to work, we didn't work to live,
yeah,
because working was the only way to make sure we got shelter and food, right? I mean, if you were a farmer 200 years ago, you worked sun to sun, and
yeah,
you didn't have vacation. You didn't go on vacation to a cruise or the Caribbean or whatever, or Spain in Europe, to enjoy the sun. You were actually working all the time, and this idea of having the free time and building free time is relatively new, and it is also aspirational, right? So you're selling a solution for that, and it's very important to understand that content and content products may help in that. And the book that Ed will write in the future, I'm sure, is how to own your time and become rich without being owned by your business or your customers. I don't know, but that's one possibility, judging from this conversation. So explore that a bit further. Like, now that you have had that conversation or those two conversations, and you have had time to reflect, how does your branding feel like in your mind?
right. So it's definitely has something to do with time. So there are three. We know this, like we teach in 40-hour book method, that there are three different things that you help your clients at any given point. Save more time, or do things faster than they would on their own. Save money, or earn money. So there, that these three things, right? So it's the money is obvious, which everyone else talks about, which is the first thing that often
And
comes
it's the
to
most easy
mind.
value to sell, right?
Exactly, and it's a measurable value. The time is relative. It's relative to everyone. However, time is the real reason for which people are willing to spend money. I mean, it sounds cool that, like, hey, I'm making 1 million, but if I'm working like 40 hours a day, like of a 24-hour day, working double time, what's the point, right? So family, spending time with family, spending time traveling, relaxing, this is like part of the core value of these people. Now, I'm not saying that this is a total surprise for me. I think subconsciously I'm myself is drifting towards that as well, but I'm kind of pleased that it's something that I can go with, and I would feel, let's say, proud to be associated with, instead of saying like, hey, who's Ed? Ed is somebody who can make you 1 million, or Ed is somebody who can make your digital business, which I'm totally capable of.
And one of the things related to that, however, is this idea that we are not helping our customers to be successful. We're helping customers to learn how to make themselves successful. Like, that's one of the core ideas of the 48-hour book method, right? Like and that's something you comment to me on Slack when you were sending your reflections over on Slack. So talk us more about this realization that you got to.
Yeah. So it's this. People, so success, the definition of success has changed for me, or at least the I make people successful, but instead of claiming like I make them successful with their business, I make them successful buying more time or earning more time without losing money. So this is the first thing that comes to my mind right now. I mean, the direction where I'm more going. So, in other words, You may make millions, you may not make any more money than what you're making right now. I'm okay with that. Either way, I don't care. I mean, you need a platform, I'll build it for you. However, the reason to work with me compared to go and do it yourself or invest in properties or try to come up with an app or some other ideas to build residual income is that you will start having the free time starting today, not like when your app is out, right? So it's something like that. So the same promise as 48-hour book method. You will have the result today, starting today, rather than when your book is published.
And this is very important because, like, when you talk about residual income, one is tempted to, oh, you need to invest now, and then later on, somewhere in the future, you will start to earn the benefits of your work. And I'm thinking, and that's why we wrote the 48-hour book method. This is all the opposite of what it should be, right? Like,
Mm.
we build the 48-hour book method so that you can get to start developing, in this case, your expertise and the recognition for your expertise 48 hours after you start writing the book, right? And we very often say, we do this over a weekend in a nice place next to a mountain or a lake or a sea, whatever you prefer. And then you start generating leads and potentially even income right after that workshop. And during the workshop, we prepare everything. We help you write the first 3 chapters. We help you clarify your avatar. We help you build the landing page. And of course, you start building your potential
Okay.
either invitation to conferences or income stream, right? Because that's the whole idea. Some people will start doing workshops right after that before even the book is finished and so on. So this is very important to recognize. The reason why we do this, though, is not to get money earlier. The reason why we do this is the only way to know you add value to your customers is to have an exchange of value. So
Exactly. Money is
if
just a side
if
effect.
you're not selling anything, you're not getting real feedback from your customers.
Yeah. This is one of the biggest impact you have in my life is thinking in terms of this, like, hey, if it's not sold with money, it's not really tested with the market. It's not really tested in the market.
If you haven't tried to sell it, you don't know if it really makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this is also, for me, one of the core aspects of the 48-hour book method is that we are here to add value to the people we serve, our customers. We are not here to get their money. We're here to serve them. And the money is just a natural outcome of providing a service of value or something of value for your customers. A lot of the marketing, which you are familiar with, as you said, you were in direct response marketing for many years. One of the aspects of marketing that people focus on is to push products, right? Convince people they need this product. And very often what we talk about here and in the 48-hour book method, that's not how you do it. That's not what marketing is. That's advertising. That's a totally different thing. You may want to do that, but that's not marketing. That's advertising. Marketing is about finding the people that already need what you're providing. They might just not know it yet that you
Yeah.
provide that, right? Because what we very often come back to is only solve problems that people already know they have. And the reason for that is very simple, that marketing a solution to a problem that people already know they have is about providing value, right? It's the how tos. It's explaining the context. It's talking about the impact of certain solutions and certain approaches. It is not about convincing people that, hey, you have a problem, so you should get my product. It is about convincing people that the product that you're providing fits the solution space or the problem space that they are in, and therefore will benefit them. And this is very important. It is about selling the benefit for a problem, using your solution for a problem that people already recognize. You don't need to sell them on the problem. You just need to say, here's how you solve it. And of course, they will empathize with you because you speak their language. If you use the 48-hour book method, that's one of the things we talk about all the time, is always use your customer's language. Always use your
Yeah.
customer's language.
And it sounds simple. It's super simple. It's just as simple as saying always use a customer's language, but there's no system present. Like, there's no system other than like when we put together 48-hour book method, because it was just like kind of, it's a solution of our own problem. That there's no
Because we
solution.
do this, right? Like I sell products, you sell products. We need to do this. Like this is the collection, the
Yeah,
distilling of our experience over the many years.
yeah, exactly. And I must admit that has been a challenge if it was not like, not every person has the same level of empathy, in a way that, like, for example, if you look at my wife going out and talking to people, she would talk for 10 seconds, and people would like listen to her. They will just like converse as if they're the best friends and stuff. On the other hand, people have to spend an hour with me on my initial consultation. Like once I cross the 90-minute mark, that's when people realize, okay, Ed is our guy. You know, it's like it takes time. So there are natural tendencies. So if you don't have a natural edge towards collecting data and information about, or storing that information somewhere about your customers, then 48-hour book method acts as a systematic thinking that you can. I mean, we
And also
created
to
our
build the
customer
product.
journey 4 years ago,
And
and
also
we
to build
still
the
keep.
product. So it's not just collecting the information, but also to build the product, right? Because very often we are lost as to, okay, so what e-course should I buy, and what should I build, and what should the e-course contain, or what book should I write, what should be the topic? Like the method is about helping your customers tell you what
Yeah,
you need to write about.
yeah, and plus there's the tool, the journey mapping that I'm talking. Like, what do you do with this all this information is like you create a journey map, like journey of your customer, which is equivalent to something in the fiction world called world building. So J.R.R. Tolkien, before he publishes The Lord of the Rings, he spent 40 years creating the language, creating the world, creating the map, creating other stories that would influence these stories, but they will not make it to the Lord of the Rings story and stuff before the book came out. So of course that's an extreme scenario, but this is similar to when you have that journey map, you get all the things that would go in your marketing, your products, your other communications. Basically, that's once
The
a
book
customer
writes
enters
itself.
in your world. Exactly. So once a customer enter in your world, it just keeps them in a comfort zone of like, hey, I'm in the right hands.
All right. So we
Yeah.
need to wrap up. Ed, we'll continue the conversation next week, and we'll talk about what you learned from that third interview, and where you are regarding developing your own brand, again with the 48-hour book method. So I'll see you guys next week.
See you.